My mom is, to put it mildly, a bit of a narcissist. At first, she seems perfectly normal, until you really get to know her or, heaven forbid, live with her. This is why she has never been able to maintain friendships or even keep her own children in contact with her. As of the year 2023, I have gone completely no contact with her. After years of enduring her entitlement and narcissistic behavior, I finally moved out when I was around 19 or 20 years old. That is a little uncommon where I live, since rent prices have skyrocketed. But I made it work with a roommate who had a well-paying job, combined with my own job. My mom paid for none of my living expenses. We did everything ourselves. Despite that, she always tried to control every single aspect of my life. Her refusal to stop trying to control me is why I eventually cut off all contact. I only realized no contact was an option after therapy and the support of several close friends a few years later. Before that, I was still listening to her guilt trips and manipulation, allowing her to coerce me into doing things I did not want to do. When I moved out, I was excited to decorate my new apartment however I wanted. I had so many creative ideas. I immediately hung up all the posters I had collected over the years in the hallway. The walls had a few cracks, and I wanted to cover them. We used red and blue thumbtacks to put them up. We didn't have a kitchen table yet, but honestly, we never ate at the table anyway. I wanted either a really small table that wouldn't take up much space or something multifunctional. So, we started searching for a pool table with a solid cover that we could place a vinyl tablecloth over, to protect it from stains, and use it as a dining table when needed. My dad loved the idea. She absolutely hated how I decorated my new apartment. She said it looked childish because I had fairy lights strung across the ceiling. My dad, on the other hand, thought it looked like a fun bachelor pad and had no problem with it. You've got to love Dad. But my mom kept making comments about how I needed to take down the posters and replace them with paintings that I didn't like and didn't need. She kept telling me I should paint something myself, because I do paint, and have it framed for the hallway. Every single time I visited her, or whenever I came home to grab more of my belongings, it was the same conversation. She would go on and on about how my apartment was ugly, how she would have never decorated it that way, how she needed to come in and fix it, and how no adult would ever choose to live like that. She wanted me to redecorate my entire apartment from scratch, which would have cost me hundreds of dollars. That would mean hiring a painter or buying random stuff I didn't need from the local thrift shop. I kept trying to gently tell her that I liked how my apartment looked, and that, as an adult, I was perfectly capable of making my own choices. We hadn't even moved all my things into the apartment yet, and she was already bombarding me with insults. She made endless cruel comments about how I had no taste, how I needed to tear everything down and start over, and how her house was so much better than mine. For the most part, I ignored her. I was used to her hating everything about what I did. But then her approach changed. Instead of constantly criticizing, she started dragging me to yard sales under the pretense of helping me find something I needed. Of course, it was part of her own little plan. At one yard sale, she found a kitchen table and chairs that she fell in love with. I didn't want them. I was looking for a pool table. I was raised to always accept gifts from her. If I didn't, she would make my life a living nightmare. She made it her mission to make me feel guilty, like I was the worst person in the world, if I didn't appear happy about her gifts. There were times she actually returned my Christmas presents because I didn't react the right way. If I didn't have a huge smile on my face and enthusiastically thank her for what she bought me, the gift would disappear from my pile and I would never see it again. Sometimes, she would tell my sibling to steal my gift from me. I would never even get the chance to wear the shirt, play with the toy, or enjoy the present, just because I didn't put on a grand performance of gratitude to feed her fragile self-esteem. She believed she was entitled to control my reactions to her giving me a gift. Other times, she thought she was entitled to take other people's gifts entirely. She would steal from me, my dad, or my sibling if she thought she looked better wearing something, or simply because she wanted it. I was never allowed to own a video game console because she believed it would make me spend less time with her. In reality, I found plenty of other ways to avoid spending time with her that didn't involve technology. She just didn't want me to have anything that gave me independence. When I was 16, I saved every penny of birthday money to buy myself a laptop. She had no part in helping me save for it. In fact, she often told guests at my birthday parties not to give me money because she claimed I would waste it. When people teased me about supposedly being bad with money, I would calmly explain my plans and show them the notebook where I kept track of my savings. Of course, she sometimes stole my money anyway, because she didn't want me to have independence or something I could use to ignore her. I carefully recorded every bill and coin in that notebook, and that is how I figured out she was stealing from me. When my dad found out, he made her feel so guilty that she finally stopped doing it. Dad often stepped in to stop her, but he couldn't protect me from everything because he was working all the time. All of this is why I was extremely cautious when she gifted me the kitchen table. I accepted it begrudgingly, because if I didn't, she would tell the entire extended family that I was on drugs and needed to come home so she could save me. She always needed to paint herself as the hero in my story. That kitchen table ended up taking quite a beating. I adopted a stray cat who hadn't yet figured out where the litter box was. The cat eventually learned, but not before peeing on the kitchen table a few times. I have never been prouder. The table and chairs ended up in the dumpster when I moved out. Most of the chairs had broken because the wood wasn't compatible with the climate. The fairy lights, sadly, did not last. My mom would visit and secretly cut the strings with scissors. I gave up on replacing them after a while. I didn't find out she had been cutting them until years later, when she casually admitted to it. I have never felt more free than when I finally bought my own home and decorated it. They really helped the kids find the bathroom in the dark, and the teenagers absolutely love the Star Wars posters. I'm planning to hang some different ones soon. For those listening who wanted a summary, my mom believed she was entitled to decorate my apartment, despite having no financial or legal say over it. She sabotaged my space in an attempt to make it look normal. Sorry, Mom, but I didn't grow up to decorate my home in boring beige tones and generic paintings of flowers. Story 2. I, a 29-year-old woman, have an older stepbrother named Chris, who is 42 years old. He has been a nightmare since the day my mother married his father. Let me give a bit of background. Our parents married when I was 4 years old and Chris was 17. Both of our parents were widowed. After their wedding, we moved to the United States because my mother had American citizenship through marriage. I was born in the United States too, but after my father died when I was 1, my mother and I moved back to Colombia. My stepfather got his residency through marriage, and my stepbrother did as well because he was a minor. Chris was never a fan of me. My only memories of him are constant bullying. He would be left in charge of me since he was studying locally and lived with my parents, but his so-called babysitting mostly meant things like locking me in the guest bathroom or the shed outside. He would steal my lunchbox whenever he was the one who dropped me off at school. He even began to harm my pets. I have an old cat who has been with me for almost 22 years. Chris tried more than once to run her over with his car. My parents never believed any of it. Chris was the classic golden child. My mother absolutely wanted a son instead of a daughter, so my stepbrother took priority over me. The bullying just kept getting worse and creepier. He had this long key for the bathroom. The door was designed so that if it got locked by accident, you could open it by inserting a long stick or key through a small hole on the outside. Chris would use it to walk in on me while I was showering. My underwear would disappear sometimes, and I know for a fact it was him. He also started taking pictures of me sleeping. One night I woke up to him touching himself next to me while I slept. I yelled, obviously. My parents came over, but he wasn't in trouble. I was for supposedly tempting him. I was 14 when this happened. He was 27. No one helped me, and Chris got bolder until he did something I am still in therapy for when I was 16. It got to a point where I called my biological half-older brother, Sam, who is 48 and the son of my biological father's first wife, to see if I could live with him and his wife, Sandy, during my last 2 years of high school. When Sam found out what was going on, he confronted my mother. She didn't care and just told him to take me as long as he never asked her for money. Done and done. My brother and his wife became my legal guardians and took me in, along with my cat and the old family dog, since I didn't trust leaving any living creature with Chris around. My parents never checked on me. My extended family from my father's side knew what happened, and they immediately got together to ensure I could finish school well and go to college. I don't know my maternal family at all. Thanks to my paternal family, including Sam's mother and her family, I got my bachelor's and master's degrees with no student debt and now work as a nurse practitioner. I still live with Sam, his wife, and their 2 kids, and I pay a small rent. Neither Sam nor his wife expected me to pay anything, but that's the least I can do for the 2 people who have taken care of me for 13 years. For anyone wondering why I didn't move out, it's incredibly expensive where I live, and Sam insisted I stay with them until I save enough to buy my own home. Things seemed okay until my mother messaged me recently. She had not messaged me since I was 18, when she told me she no longer had any responsibility to me. In this message, she sounded overly friendly, telling me how she missed me and asking how I was doing. I was a bit creeped out but decided to be nice, telling her about what I had done since leaving her care. She seemed very interested, since apparently she knew I was a nurse but not what kind I was. She began asking me about my salary. I didn't tell her anything about it, just that it was enough to pay the bills. My mother then began texting about Chris and how he was barely making any money due to his student debt. Apparently, Chris never finished a degree, jumping from career to career. He is now working in my stepfather's used cars business as a salesman, but most of his pay goes to pay the substantial student debt he accumulated over the years. I told my mother how sorry I was that Chris was having a hard time and wished him luck. That's when my mother finally got to what she wanted. She texted me that I needed to pay his student debt so he could finally begin to make the money he deserves, like the man of the family. I just turned off my phone. When I got home, Sam was surprised since I was usually the last to arrive. Sandy wasn't home yet. I told Sam what happened and showed him my mother's text messages. I don't think I've ever seen Sam this angry. He told me to block my mother, stepfather, and Chris if I had not done so yet. After talking with Sam and Sandy, I called my boss to ask for the next day and the one after off. This gave me a 4-day weekend, including the days I'm normally off shift. My boss was more than okay with this and told me to just take it easy and let her know if she could help. This backfired because the next day, my mother and Chris decided to come to Sam's house to speak to me. I was alone since Sam and Sandy were at work, and the kids were at school. I immediately called Sam and told him what was going on. He told me not to open the door and that he was on his way. My mother spent the whole time screaming that I owed them for raising me and that my sweet brother deserved the money. Chris was going around trying to find a window or door unlocked. There wasn't any, since the windows have safety bars and the only other doors were in the closed garage and the yard. The yard one was locked, and just in case, I locked the one in the garage. I won't post what Chris called me when he saw me from one of the windows, but basically, he told me they should have thrown me away when I was a baby since I grew up to be a witch. He pounded on one of the windows so hard, he actually cracked the glass. Eventually, he gave up and went back to the front door, clearly trying to kick it down. I didn't have anything to worry about, the door was a security door, but I was still very scared. Between yelling, threatening, pleading, and insults, I finally heard Sam screaming at them to get lost. I only saw things from the window. Sam pretty much dragged them both off the porch. They got to a point where I couldn't hear, but I saw my mother and Chris pale and look scared before they practically ran to their car and drove off way above the legal speed limit. Sam came in a bit after and immediately went into full overprotective brother mode, asking me if I was okay. He kept saying sorry and hugging me. Sandy arrived almost immediately after, and she looked like she was about to lose her temper. Apparently, Sam threatened Chris with filing charges for what he did to me when I was 16. My brother's ace card. My stepfather was willing to testify against his own son. That seemed enough to get Chris off our backs, but not my mother. Since then, it's been 3 days, and my mother has sent texts, called nonstop with various numbers, and rallied a group of people who are supposedly my maternal family to harass me for money. She claims that money should legally be hers since she's my mother, and that it's my late father's missed child support. Sam is helping me find a lawyer to get a restraining order on my mother, and I plan to take my stepfather's offer to testify by pressing charges against Chris. I can't say I can forgive my stepfather for not stopping his son, but I appreciate that he's at least trying. I don't know the details, but Chris did something to a relative of his dad, and since then they had a really bad fallout. I took my boss's offer and will be on vacation for a few more days. But here it is. My vacation days are getting eaten up, and my therapist might need a therapist after this. Thankfully, my dark sense of humor and supportive paternal family are keeping me somewhat sane. Story 3. I'm 24 years old and a college student. I've worked in a bar for the last 2 years, and though it's a stable job, I still don't make enough to move out. I've had other higher-paying jobs, but my area is just too expensive. And due to having moved to this state with my parents immediately after graduating high school, and growing up as a military kid constantly moving and struggling to ever keep contact with friends I did make because of it, I have no friends in the area that I could just move in with. I have too much paranoia to live with strangers. I've just been living with my parents until I finish college, doing it online because my parents didn't want me living in a dorm and being away from them. I should be graduating next year, and then hopefully I'll move in with the only person I've managed to get close with. We just live in separate states right now, so it's taking time. Anyway, my parents have always been very strange when it came to raising me and my older sister. There are a lot of instances. I have plenty of stories, but this one annoys me most and causes me anxiety. My parents' house is big, but every room except the master bedroom is pretty small. My bedroom can only fit my bed, dresser, and TV stand comfortably, so my desk, computer, bookshelf, and my ferret with his big cage are in the bedroom next to mine that's used as an office for me instead. I'm 24, so obviously I love having some privacy, especially since I spent most of my life being heavily monitored and coddled by my parents, specifically my mother, because I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at 4, plus a bunch of other things that keep adding up as I see doctors. My sister actually told me she was a bit relieved about how little they ever paid attention to her, because they were so focused on me. I was coddled so much by my mother that I am only now learning things like cooking or doing laundry, which she still keeps me from doing because it has to be done this way, not that way. And when I ask for help, she gets mad and tells me to figure it out myself. I'm rambling all this to say our mother still hovers and overwhelms me with how on top of me she is. But the worst of it is probably the fact she will let herself into my bedroom or office whenever she wants, most of the time without announcement. Reminder, I'm an adult. I'm also assigned female at birth, and again, an adult, though my parents don't believe I do things like that because I'm their baby who never seems interested and acts disgusted. But I act that way to keep my dad from making jokes and comments about me. So, besides existing, I also do adult things in my private time. Obviously, I'll lock the door, but does that stop her? Absolutely not. Even if I'm in my office playing video games, I'll keep one end of the headphones off at all times so I can listen out for her moving around nearby. I don't have anything to hide, but my anxiety goes through the roof. Besides that, because of my dad, I hate anyone coming up or sneaking up behind me without my knowing, and she insists on my computer facing the door, so my back is to the door. So I lock my door to prevent people from doing that. Like any human being, I also lock my door when I'm changing in my bedroom. And what does my mom do? She finds my door is locked, unlocks it, and lets herself in. There was this one time, for example, where I was in my bedroom in the middle of changing. I was literally completely topless when I didn't hear her approach my door. All I hear suddenly is the sound of my doorknob, the lock being switched from the outside, and then the door being thrust open. And what did I do? I body slammed the door shut and nearly hurt her doing it. I don't know what it is, but even if it's my mom, who insisted on bathing me until I was nearly 14, the thought of anyone seeing me in any state of undress, even if it's just in my underwear, feels disgusting and makes me panicky. So I'm not joking when I say I was hyperventilating when I slammed into the door to shut it and was quickly trying to dress. While I'm doing that, my mom is shoving into the door, trying to force it open, yelling to let her in and that she wanted to tell me to do something. I told her no, that I'm changing and she can't come in. She gave up getting in, mostly because I'm a fairly strong person despite never working out, unless you count picking up tables and kegs at work for fun exercise. I just like picking up heavy things to see if I can. When I finally let her in, after changing, she's huffing and mad with me, demanding to know why I wouldn't let her in. I repeated that I was changing, and she said, "So, I'm your mother, I made that but so I can look at it." I ignored that and said my door was locked and that she shouldn't just be letting herself in and unlocking my door. She responds with, "I can do what I want, it's my house. If I want in your room then I'll come into your room. I can unlock your door if I want. What if there was an emergency? What if you were dying? What if I was dying?" I said, "I don't care. I'm an adult, this is my private space, you do not just let yourself in whenever you want. I don't disrespect you and let myself into your room and unlock your door. Don't do it to me." Edit, thank you for all the replies giving advice and reassuring me. I will look into a door stopper. I just worry about her reactions. Since just a few years ago a bad experience with my dad and locked doors left me sobbing, and in a panic attack on the bathroom floor while he pounded the door until it nearly broke, calling me a lot of things. So I get a lot of anxiety about my parents' reactions to being unable to get to me. I'll definitely try to get a stopper when I get paid next. I'm making this edit to answer and add some things that might need to be mentioned. Second, it may be some time before I can fully move out due to money and the situation with my best friend, but I've been planning to pursue my master's after I finish my bachelor's at a school less than an hour away that's close to my work and requires freshmen to live on campus. The original plan was to get an internship out of state for a month or so to get practice being more independent, but I didn't get accepted to my choices, so I'm relying on pursuing a master's now for a good excuse for them to allow me to live away from them. Third, I'm not a legal dependent. Back in 2018, a month before my 18th birthday and right after I graduated high school, my parents insisted we get me an attorney and open a case to make me their dependent. I didn't want to. I knew it meant I'd have to stay forever, that I'd be stuck at home. I said I didn't want to do that, but they insisted it was for my own good and to help me. When we met my attorney, they didn't allow me to get a word in for the first 30 minutes with him. He made them wait in the other room so he could speak with me, and I told him I didn't want this. He asked about me, lots of questions. Finally, when the hearing occurred, my mother broke down sobbing and telling everyone in the room that I needed it, that I was going to die in a ditch somewhere, her exact words, that they just wanted to help me. The attempt to make me a dependent was denied, as my attorney found me perfectly capable and happily wanting to be independent, and thought it unnecessary to make me into a dependent. Fourth, my sister and I used to speak of me living with her, but because of a medical situation with my nephew and with other family situations going on, my uncle is living with her and my brother-in-law to help with the kids and house. Fifth, after it being so long, I'm not sure of the full name and contact of my old therapist anymore, only a last name. I don't even know the address of her office, as my parents didn't allow me to learn how to drive until I was 22. I may try to speak with our doctor about referrals, as I know the address at least. I'm just hoping I can find a day off or can find an in-person therapist, as I tried digital and was getting nowhere with the lack of privacy to speak with someone. Sixth, my bank account is heavily monitored by my mother, and she sees everything I do with it. I've been looking into opening a private account, but I just worry about a new card coming in since she goes through all of our mail and I work often. Edit 2, sorry, another edit, but I forgot to add some things that I think I mentioned in the comments, but forgot to add since I was going into work. Warning because I do mention suicide. There have been many occasions where, when I get especially stressed from being busy with work and school and vent about it, my parents have insisted I just quit my job and focus on school, and they'll take care of me and my bills. I could just stay home and only do school. They stopped recently only because I told them to their faces that if I had to be home and not work, I'd go crazy like that and take my own life. Dramatic? Yes, incredibly so, but it's true. Some of the hardest times of my depression were when I was out of a job and trapped at home constantly. Turns out it's probably a mixture of depression and bipolar disorder. We didn't find out I was bipolar until last year when I first spoke with our most recent doctor, and I did attempt but failed. Not that they noticed, they just thought I was acting tired and told me to lay down. A somewhat minor thing, I think, but when I drive places I have to let my mom know where I'm going, and if she says no then I can't go. Same with trips. And she makes sure I'm going where I said by tracking me. The one time I turned it off, she called me freaking out. Thanks for making it to the end of today's video. I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider liking or subscribing, but I hope you have a nice day either way.